A common refrain in narcissistic relationships, and something that often leads people to doubt that they are dealing with a narcissistic relationship, is this idea that this person, and this really only applies in adult relationships, obviously, but that they were so empathic in the beginning. And so then go on to speculate and say that, well, they were so empathic, so maybe I became more difficult. Or this is just what happens in relationships. Why does this happen? Why do people think this, right? Well, the sense that the narcissistic person was once empathic, especially during the early phase of the relationship, is very common, right? So this can also lead people to wonder if maybe they're even reading things right about this relationship. So to better understand this issue, we need to correct a common misconception about narcissism. Narcissism is not an absence of empathy. I don't even know that it's even a lack of empathy. It's variable empathy. This empathy may be performative. It may be transactional. Typically, this empathy only comes around when the narcissistic person is feeling good, got plenty of supply, or that your needs and their needs align. One could argue maybe that's not really empathy, but you may not know this is happening because your emotions are being empathized with. You feel aligned with them, so it feels like empathy, right? And especially in the beginning of a romantic relationship, it can definitely feel like there's fine amounts of empathy flowing widely and often. Is the empathy just love bombing? Well, not entirely, okay? The beginning of a relationship, pretty much any intimate romantic relationship, is generally often like peak good behavior narcissistic person, right? They are experiencing a lot of rewarding stuff. Novelty, all the validation and admiration that we get in a new relationship, excitement, the thrill of the hunt and the thrill of the chase and the courtship, winning, right? Lots of people enjoy the early phase of a relationship. I mean, they're kind of purpose-built that way. And we can feel excited, the sizzle and the zazazoo. It's all very rewarding. It's all very dopamine, and it all feels really good. And when things feel good, narcissistic people are at their best. And what gets confusing is that stuff that feels like empathy, or at least empathy light, that's all part of that. Narcissistic people center they themselves in everything they do and feel. Other people's everything, feelings, needs, wants, are kind of off the center of the lens, kind of an afterthought. That means if you are in the center of their psychological field of vision for a moment, much as we may be at an intense period of time, like the beginning of a relationship, it sure as hell feels like empathy, and I would argue it sort of is. I just don't think that narcissism is the absence of empathy. Now, this doesn't just happen at the beginning of a relationship. This can also happen at other intense periods in the relationship, or at times when things are really working out the way the narcissistic person wants. Perhaps you're on a gorgeous vacation where the weather is perfect and everything goes the way they want. Some people will even say that when they're in a narcissistic relationship and that's the day that the baby is being delivered and the delivery room and all that, the narcissistic person can feel empathic because it's a special day for both of you, right? And this can happen in other relationships too, not just intimate relationship. This empathy sense may very well have happened when you were growing up. And you may not have known that things were going the way that the narcissistic parent wanted, but they were going the way the narcissistic parent wanted. For example, the narcissistic parent's career was working out the way they wanted, or their golf game was really going well, or that the house they wanted to buy worked out, or they were having an affair, or it was a happy holiday time of year. Whatever it is, that narcissistic parent is pumped. And as long as they feel good, we often get the slop over empathy from that. This can also happen, for example, at work, when things are going well for the narcissistic boss or business partner or colleague. And you're kind of caught in what feels like a lot of warmth. It feels like empathy. Because it kind of is. That presence of empathy makes us think, well, okay, I was wrong. There's no way this can be narcissism because narcissistic people don't have empathy. That's not true, okay? But this presence of now you see it, now you don't empathy, or even compassion that seemed to be there for a moment, maybe at the beginning of the relationship or during a really wonderful time in their life. You know, let's say the beginning of the relationship, they brought you chicken soup when you were sick. They listened to your job woes. They asked you how your friend who recently had a broken heart was doing. They cried with you. Wasn't that real? You might be wondering. Yes, it was real. And you know what else is real? The gaslighting is real. And the manipulation is real. And the betrayal is real too. And the challenge, because all those things are real, the empathy is real and all that other stuff could be real too. And the challenge, without losing ourselves, is understanding that all these things are real. That the empathy will come when it works for them, which is kind of dinging the concept of top shelf empathy. Empathy comes because it comes, not just because you're having a good day. And that empathy felt good. And the relationship also can feel bad. And that empathy can show up in narcissistic people when the stars line up just right. All of that to say is that we have to break out of the idea that we need black and white clarity to heal. I get this question all the time. Dr. Ramani, tell me that they're narcissistic so I can hate them. I'm like, I ain't doing that because it doesn't work that way. That very person who brought you chicken soup and may have mopped up your tears and cried with you in the delivery room may also be the person who cheated on you or lied to you or gaslights you or rages at you or who often also doesn't show you empathy. All of that can be true at the same time. And lying to ourselves about it doesn't help. And trauma bonding means that we just abandon ourselves and blame ourselves. It's a way of like, la la la, look, this is empathic. We'll ignore that other stuff. Well, when we only see one side of it and not the other, that dichotomy makes us sick. To figure all of this out and ultimately to heal is to do that really difficult thing of pushing together puzzle pieces that don't really seem to fit to create a whole picture. It's really hard to do. Cognitive dissonance always seems to have an upper hand. And it pushes us to get rid of that tension, that psychological tension we feel by making the pieces fit. And that happens in a way that usually requires us silencing ourselves and viewing ourselves as the problem. Interestingly, the narcissistic people will view us as the problem too. That's how they get through cognitive dissonance. But for us, doubting ourselves, that way of thinking stays with us a long time. So yes, someone can be narcissistic and have shown empathy in the past and still have flashes of empathy. All of that can be true. But you also have to, as you see them wholly, okay, there's some empathy, but you also have to have awareness of the regularly occurring unhealthy, invalidating dynamics to fully make sense of it, to navigate it, and not lose yourself in the self-abandonment piece. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that where there is empathy, there is no narcissism. That's incorrect. And it is an assumption that can trap you under a lot of confusion and self-blame. Narcissistic person can have empathy and can also behave badly, and all of this can make for a very confusing mess until you finally get it. You can't keep waiting for the sunny days and just blame yourself for the rainy ones. So we've got to dismantle this myth that narcissistic people have no empathy. They can have it, and they can, in the good days, they can really have it. In the beginning of a relationship, they can really have it. With other people, you might even see it. Is it really empathy when it doesn't show up regularly? I mean, I don't know. Is a snapshot of a moment real when later on you realize that somebody broke your heart? Was that smile real? I'd argue, yeah, on that day you were smiling. On that day it felt like empathy. But empathy becomes really tricky when you can't count on it. It is like somebody throwing you a life preserver and you don't know if it's going to hold you up in the water. If you can't count on it, you're just waiting again. You're you're becoming vigilant because you're like, is this going to be okay today? That's a very, very unsafe way to live. But don't throw out the idea that, okay, this person cannot be narcissistic. It's not the issue of, I need to determine someone's narcissistic. It's much more that understanding that in this personality, patterns are stable. That then gives you the permission to see things more clearly and make better choices. But if you use empathy as an eraser, well, they were empathic, so that's not what this is. The quick twist tends to be, well, the problem's got to be me. I'm the person who just needs to see it in this way, and this is also reductive and all of that. The challenge with narcissism is it's not reductive. While there are patterns and they are consistent, it's not as simple as this is an always cruel, mean, manipulative person. There are sprinkled in there good moments. That's the foundation of the trauma bond. And obviously, the more severe the narcissism, when we get to more malignant narcissism, those empathy flashes become much, much, much fewer and far between. Or they may happen with other people they're trying to manipulate in your world, and certainly not with you. But in many cases, especially when we're on the moderate to mild spectrum of this, those moments are there. And I don't know that I get to sit here as the judge and jury of empathy. Feels like it, and maybe for that moment they actually were connected to your inner world. But it gets clunky when it's not consistently there, and it becomes something you simply cannot count on. Makes it all a lot harder, but I think sometimes understanding the nuance can help you be kinder to yourself as you try to heal.